They call it the perfect heist. 50 million francs, no guns, no blood, just a tunnel carved through 8 meters of rock and sewage beneath one of the most secure banks on the French Riviera. But here is what almost nobody talks about. The tools that made it possible were not high-tech laser cutters or military-grade explosives. They were hammers, chisels, shovels with bent handles stolen from construction sites. Hands blistered raw through 2 months of midnight digging in waist-deep water. How does a wedding photographer and a crew of Marseille thugs break through concrete foundations designed to stop armies? What happens when improvised tools meet concrete walls 1.8 meters thick? How far can 15 men dig with nothing but hand tools when the entire French police apparatus is hunting for who hit the vault of the century? Avenue Jean Médecin, Nice, 1976. The Société Générale sits 5 blocks from the glittering Mediterranean, vault stacked with the hidden wealth of Riviera aristocrats and tax-dodging industrialists. Manager Jacques Genet trusts his fortress. Walls over 1 meter thick, steel door 500 millimeters deep, no acoustic alarms because the structure itself is supposed to be untouchable. 5 Parisian banks combined hold less than this single branch. The vault sits directly above the city's sewer system, fed by the covered river Paillon running underground through central Nice. Distance from sewer, main to vault floor, 8 meters through soil, conglomerate rock called poudingue, and reinforced concrete. 8 meters is all that separates wealth from waste. Born December 14th, 1932 in Laragne-Montéglin in the Hautes-Alpes. Father Richard dies in 1935 when Bear is 3. Mother Marcel, née Clément, remarries and runs a lingerie shop in Hyères on the coast. Young Albert hates his stepfather. At 16, he runs away to meet Salvatore Giuliano, the famous Sicilian bandit, a pilgrimage to criminality that shapes his worldview. At 19, he enlists as a paratrooper for the First Indochina War, 3rd Battalion Colonial Paratroopers. During the service, he and accomplices put a gun to someone's head, claiming the victim robbed them first. Military court disagrees, calls it a stick-up, 4 years in military prison. Assassinating officials, another 3.5 years behind bars for OAS activities. Then Senegal works in a factory producing safe deposit boxes. His job includes breaking into strong boxes for clients who lost keys, perfect training for a future vault cracker. He learns the weaknesses, the stress points, how locks fail, where hinges give way under pressure. By 1976, he is 44 years old back in France, running a photography studio on Avenue Jean Médecin in Nice, shooting weddings and passport photos, living in a house he names Les Oies Sauvages, the wild geese, in the hills above the city, married, middle-class life, legitimate income, but bored, restless, dangerous combination for a man who spent his youth in combat zones and prison cells. If you value documented heist engineering and criminal history like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the French Wikipedia comprehensive entry on Albert Spadiari, updated as recently as 2 weeks ago in December 2025, Time magazine's original 1976 coverage titled France Bank Heist of the Century published August 2nd, 1976, and declassified CIA documents from the National Security Archive published in 2000 revealing Spadiari's connections to Chilean intelligence operative Michael Townley. These are not tabloid stories. These are archival documents, police reports, and first-hand trial testimony. Now back to the information. Spadiari hears through OAS connections that Nice sewers run close to bank vaults. He starts exploring in 1974. Night after night, sometimes several times per week, he descends into the sewer system through the entrance at the upstream covered section of the Paillon, under the Palais des Expositions, roughly 1 mile from downtown. He wades alone through 3 kilometers of tunnels, measuring distances with a tape measure, checking clearances with a folding ruler, noting pipe diameters and junction points in a notebook, photographing access routes with his camera equipment. The sewers smell like death and chemicals, rats, human waste, industrial runoff. He maps routes through chest-high water wearing waders, marking potential passage points. He acquires official city blueprints of the sewer system, possibly from a contact in the municipal engineering office who thinks he's a builder or contractor, checking drainage for a construction project. Some accounts suggest he claimed to be surveying for a property development. Others say he simply knew someone corruptible in City Hall. Either way, he gets the plans. The maps confirm what he suspects. The main sewer line of the covered Paillon passes within 8 meters horizontal distance of the Société Générale Vault Foundation. 8 meters through soil and rock. Difficult, but feasible. Plants an extremely loud mechanical alarm clock inside, the kind that rings with hammer-on bells, generating sharp acoustic noise and vibration. Sets it to trigger at midnight when the bank is empty and any acoustic or seismic detection system would be most sensitive. He waits. Midnight comes. Clock rings for several minutes. No police arrive. No security response. No indication the vault has any electronic monitoring. Gwinnett relies entirely on physical impenetrability. The 1-meter thick walls, the 500mm steel door, the embedded location in a reinforced building in the city center. The alarm test confirms what Spaghiari hoped. The vault is blind and deaf. It cannot sense attack from below. These are hardened criminals, men who rob banks, hijack trucks, run protection rackets. They examine his plans, study the sewer maps, survey the site themselves, and decline. Too risky, too much physical labor, too long exposed underground where one collapsed tunnel or one maintenance worker checking pipes ends with arrest. They walk away. Spaghiari pivots. He turns to trusted associates built from his time in Indochina and Algeria, men who served in combat zones, who know discipline and discomfort, who can follow orders and maintain operational security under pressure, ex-paratroopers, former OAS members, a few career criminals comfortable with violent work but also capable of patient planning. Identify 6 arrests. Core digging crew, probably 15 men according to multiple source accounts. Among them, Daniel Michelucci and Gerard Vigier, known Marseille underworld figures, already on police radar for prior crimes, both in their 30s, experienced with safecracking and armed robbery. Likely, the crew also includes actual professional excavators or construction workers, men who understand soil mechanics, tunnel shoring, how to read rock, layers, and predict collapse points. You do not dig 8 meters through Puddinga conglomerate without someone who knows geology and concrete. Police note the tools, check IDs, find nothing explicitly illegal. Possession of construction equipment is not a crime. They release them with warnings about proper cargo securing. The chisels belong to a match series. Industrial tools from the same manufacturer and supplier. Later, after the heist, police will recover chisels in the sewer that match this series exactly. Michelucci and Vigier were buying or stealing final equipment loads 1 month before breach. 20 kilograms when full, several hydraulic jacks capable of lifting multiple tons, the kind used in auto repair or construction for moving heavy loads, hundreds of meters of electrical cable in multiple gauge sizes, wooden beams for tunnel shoring, probably 2x4s and 2x6s, standard construction lumber, metal stanchions, steel posts or pipes for reinforcing the shoring framework, thermal lances, specialized cutting tools that burn at temperatures above 2,000 degrees Celsius to oxidize through steel and concrete, drills with masonry bits, crowbars called pied de biche in French, literally goat's foot, the prying tools with curved claws, rubber rafts for floating through deeper sewer sections where water depth exceeds wading height, ventilation equipment, probably industrial fans with ducting, to push fresh air through the tunnel and exhaust carbon dioxide and methane, portable stoves for cooking meals underground during the final vault weekend, picnic tables and folding chairs, air mattresses for sleeping, even pinup photographs to hang in the tunnel for morale during the grinding labor. All of it stolen from construction sites around Nice and the surrounding Alps Maritimes region, or purchased with cash in small quantities from different suppliers to avoid creating traceable patterns. No single purchase large enough to draw attention, no credit cards, no checks, no records. Cash transactions scattered across hardware stores, welding supply shops, building material yards, camping equipment retailers. The financial outlay is probably tens of thousands of francs for equipment, plus more for vehicle rentals and safe house rental. Spaghiari likely uses his own savings, plus contributions from wealthier crew members or backing from someone with capital, possibly Cassandri if he was actually the mastermind funding the operation. Almost 3 months before the break-in. 15 men, likely including professional excavators or construction workers familiar with shoring and tunneling, begin the work. Entry point, the upstream covered section of the Paillon, under the exposition center, roughly 1 mile from Place Massena. They transport equipment by van to this location, including 6 oxyacetylene torches, 27 acetylene tanks according to Time magazine August, 1976 and 30 tanks according to other sources, several hydraulic jacks, hundreds of meters of electrical cable. They dismantle crash barriers blocking underground access. They descend into the sewer system carrying up to 50 kilograms of gear per trip through 3 kilometers of winding tunnels, waist deep in human waste and rainwater runoff. Drills, chisels called burins, sledgehammers called masses, thermal lances to melt concrete, crowbars, all of it stolen from construction sites around Nice to avoid traceability. Belly, depending on the section. Soil composition documented in police reports. Earth mixed with pudding, a natural concrete formed from ancient river deposits where stones became cemented by calcium carbonate and silica over millennia, plus layers of actual poured concrete from 20th century vault foundation work and street construction above. The paudang is the killer, harder than most natural rock, resists chiseling, dull steel tools, rapidly, requires constant sharpening breaks. Any unusual noise brings investigation. Detection means arrest before the vault is even reached. So they chip, swing sledgehammer, drive chisel, pry loose fragment with crowbar, haul debris back along the tunnel, swing again, repeat. 15 centimeters of forward progress per night shift. That is the average. Some nights on good soil they make 10 or 12 inches. Some nights they spend the entire shift attacking a single embedded boulder in the pouting layer, striking with sledge, wedging with chisels, prying with crowbars, and by dawn they have advanced 3 inches. The geology is unpredictable. You break through a meter of soil in 4 nights, then hit a conglomerate layer, and spend 2 weeks on the next meter. No caffeine, makes men jittery, disrupts sleep cycles, causes crashes. Mandatory minimum 10 hours of sleep between shifts. Probably mandatory cold showers and hot meals as well to maintain physical conditioning. The work is brutal. Swinging a 10-pound sledgehammer in a 4-foot-high tunnel for 8 hours destroys shoulders, wrists, backs. Breathing concrete dust and sewer gases causes respiratory distress. Kneeling and crawling on rock abrades knees and hands. Men rotate positions, 2 swinging hammers, 1 chiseling, 1 hauling rubble, 1 monitoring ventilation and shoring, rest period every 2 hours, positions swap every 4 hours. That is 8,300 liters. Assume half of it is void space and the actual solid rock and soil removed is 4,000 liters, 4 cubic meters, weighing approximately 8,000 kilograms at 2 kilograms per liter for rock and soil. 8 tons of rubble. Where does it go? Cannot dump it in one location. Maintenance workers would notice a pile. Cannot haul it to surface, requires vehicles and creates witnesses. Solution. They scatter it through surrounding sewer tunnels over 3 kilometers of underground network, spreading debris thin so it looks like normal silt accumulation from water flow. They also pack some rubble into void spaces in the tunnel itself behind the shoring, using it as ballast and reinforcement. 8 tons dispersed in small quantities across 3 kilometers of sewer becomes invisible. Maintenance crews see nothing unusual. At the end of each shift, before they exit to surface, they brick up the breach point in the sewer wall, carry bricks and mortar down, rebuild the wall section they demolished to access the tunnel, make it look untouched. City inspectors walk past weekly, see normal brick sewer walls, notice nothing. The camouflage work adds hours to each shift, but prevents detection. Without it, they would be caught in the first week. Spaggiari runs the operation like a military campaign, shifts on alternate nights, no alcohol, no caffeine, minimum 10 hours of sleep between shifts to avoid accidents and maintain alertness. Tunnel walls shored with wooden beams and metal stanchions, set in concrete for stability. Engineering is solid as a mine shaft, according to reports. They run electrical cable from a municipal underground parking lot, tapping the power grid illegally. Lights strung through the tunnel. Ventilation devices jury-rigged to push fresh air through because carbon dioxide and methane from sewage can kill. Rubber rafts for floating through deeper sewer sections. Picnic tables and air mattresses brought in for rest breaks underground. Photographs. Some sources mention naughty pictures hung along the tunnel walls to maintain morale during the grinding labor. Nearly 3 months of chipping. The target wall, 1.8 meters thick, 6 feet of reinforced concrete protecting the vault floor. French Wikipedia confirms this measurement, citing police investigation documents. They reach it ahead of schedule using a combination of hand tools and the thermal lance, a device that burns at extreme temperature to cut through steel and concrete by oxidation. Still, the final breakthrough requires days of continuous work with crowbars and sledgehammers. The vault has 4,000 safe deposit boxes. The floor is thick, the door is thicker, but the floor is what they hit. A hydraulic jack, probably weighing 50 kilograms, stolen from a construction yard, topples the safe deposit box that was resting against the breached section of floor. 13 men climb through. First action, weld the vault door shut from the inside using oxyacetylene torches. This buys time. If anyone tries to open the door from outside during the weekend, they will find it sealed. Internal sabotage suspected, not external breach. Inside the vault, they set up camp, wine, food, foie gras, pâté. They picnic while they work, cigarettes stubbed out on the floor, meals cooked on portable stoves. They even use antique silver serving dishes from the vault as makeshift toilets. 27 acetylene tanks for the cutting torches. They start opening boxes, thermal torch cuts through steel, crowbars, pry lids. Some boxes resist, built tougher than expected. Progress slower than planned. Out of 4,000 boxes, they managed 317 according to most sources, 371 according to others, roughly 10% of total. They take nothing traceable, no bonds with serial numbers, no documents that can be tracked. Cash, gold bars, jewels, gemstones, untraceable wealth. They have hours, maybe less, before their escape route drowns them or traps them in the vault. They load the haul, 50 million francs estimated, though nobody including the bank knows exact totals because French law does not require deposit box holders to declare contents. Some estimates reach 100 million francs. They stuff it into bags, multiple trips through 3 kilometers of sewer, 3 hours of hauling. Water rising to their necks. A Land Rover 4x4 has been positioned on the bank of the covered Paillon section by an accomplice. They load everything. Dawn, Monday, July 19th. The loot is divided in a villa in the Nice hinterland according to French police investigations. Each letter written by a different gang member, so handwriting cannot be traced. A signature, a boast, a message to investigators that this was a heist of engineering, not brutality. Then they vanish into the sewers. They decide to cut through the wall to access the mechanism. They break through and discover the door has been welded shut from inside. Panic, they force entry. The scene, 317 empty boxes gaping open, cigarette butts, wine bottles, food wrappers, leftover meals, silver dishes used as toilets, the spray-painted message mocking them from the concrete, a hole in the floor leading down into darkness. Police arrive, follow the tunnel through 8 meters to the sewer main. They find 27 acetylene cylinders, ventilation pipes, electric cables, wooden shoring beams, metal stanchions, hand tools, sledgehammers, chisels and match sets, traced later to the ones Michelucci and Vigier were loading in June. The robbery is immediately declared the largest bank heist in history up to that date. Angry crowds clog Avenue Jean Médecin. Société Générale promises to make good all losses, but there is a problem. To claim restitution, box holders must declare contents. In France, hiding wealth in vaults to evade taxes is national sport. Declaring means exposing yourself to government audits. One elderly woman faints when she realizes she must either lose her wealth or admit she has been hiding it. Chaos, fury, humiliation. Guenet, who saved money by sending the night watchman home on weekends and installing no electronic alarms because he trusted the vault structure, becomes the face of institutional failure. The man is arrested. Under interrogation, he breaks, names the crew, names Spaggiari. Albert. Spaggiari, at that moment, is returning from Japan, where he accompanied Nice Mayor Jacques Médecin as official photographer. Spaggiari moves in influential circles. October 28, 1976, he lands at Nice Airport. Police waiting. Arrested outside his photo shop. Then, threatened with implicating his wife, he confesses. Admits the entire plan, describes the tunnel, explains the tools, even provides details on how they tested the alarms. Claims he did it to fund a secret political organization called Catena, Italian for chain, which likely exists only in his imagination, a cover story to justify the theft as ideological rather than criminal. He is held for trial. His defense attorney, Jacques Perrat, future mayor of Nice, veteran of the French Foreign Legion, member of the National Front at the time. Spaggiari, his attorney Perrat, and the judge meet. Spaggiari produces a coded document, fake, full of symbols and nonsense. The judge demands explanation. Spaggiari approaches the window, saying he feels hot and needs air. He flings it open, jumps. 3 meters down onto the roof of a parked Renault 6, rolls off the car. A motorcycle is waiting, engine running, driver ready. Spaggiari hops on the back, waves to the judge and attorney staring from the window, and roars away. The judge, furious and humiliated, sentences him to life imprisonment in absentia. CIA documents declassified in 2000 and published by the National Security Archive reveal Spaggiari had contacts with Michael Townley, the DINA agent responsible for assassinating Chilean politician Orlando Letelier in Washington, D.C. in 1976. The documents suggest Spaggiari conducted operations on behalf of Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet's intelligence service. His South American connections were not romance, they were operational infrastructure. He spends years on the run, plastic surgery in Argentina, disguises, periodically sends photographs to French newspapers, sometimes dressed as Santa Claus, sometimes in outlandish costumes, captions reading "Bonjour from Albert," taunting, evading, living off his share of the 50 million, though, according to later claims, he never received full payment from his Marseille co-conspirators. British author Ken Follett translates it in 1978 as The Heist of the Century, also published under titles The Gentleman of 16th July and Under the Streets of Nice. Films follow: Les Égouts du Paradis. 1979, directed by Jose Giovanni, The Great Riviera. Bank Robbery also, 1979, directed by Francis Megahy, and known alternately as Dirty Money and Sewers of Gold, Sans Armes, Ni Haine, Ni Violence 2. 1008, directed by Jean-Paul Rouve. A Canadian television series Masterminds airs an episode called The Riviera Job. The story becomes legend. The author claims to be the real brain behind the operation, says Spaggiari was merely the contact man who brought the idea, not the architect. Police investigate. Trace the manuscript to Jacques Cassandre, Corsican-born Marseille mafia kingpin, convicted previously for involvement in the French Connection heroin ring, now sitting atop a business empire. His children admit their father bragged about the robbery constantly in family settings. Cassandre cannot be prosecuted. French statute of limitations expired. He is arrested anyway on suspicion of money laundering, accused of using heist proceeds to fund ventures in Marseille and Corsica. About 20 people held for questioning, including his wife, children, and a Corsican politician. At trial in February 2018, Cassandre reverses course, claims the book is pure fiction, that he invented everything to seem credible to the publisher. His attorney, Frederic Monneray, calls it a novel that cannot be used as evidence. Cassandri acquitted on organized crime and money laundering charges, convicted only on lesser business practice violations. Prosecutors note he continues living lavishly. 2 million euros from the robbery spent quickly, he claims, though the lifestyle suggests otherwise. If you value detailed research that exposes these contradictions, subscribe. We go deep on what others skip. Comment where you're watching from. This is factual history, sourced from Thierry Colombier's Beau Voyou, published 2007 by Fayard, a specialist on organized crime in the French Connection who argues Spaggiari was never the real mastermind, and from trial documents available through the French judicial archives covering the 2018 Cassandri proceedings. Not speculation, evidence. Now back to the story. Knowledge of exactly which tools to steal and how to use them. That expertise smells like professional excavators and career criminals who have cracked vaults before. Spaggiari was the public face because he craved attention. The others stayed silent because silence is survival. Vigier died before the truth emerged. Cassandri finally could not resist the glory and wrote a book that simultaneously claimed credit and denied everything. The tools themselves tell the story. Not one piece of equipment was purpose-built for the heist. Everything improvised. Sledgehammers, masses, stolen from building sites. Chisels, burns, and pointer rolls, matched to a series found in June police stops, stolen from the same suppliers. Oxyacetylene torches and tanks, 6 torches, 27 to 30 tanks depending on source, purchased or stolen from welding suppliers. Hydraulic jacks for lifting and prying, construction equipment, thermal lances, industrial tools for cutting metal and concrete, the kind used in demolition or salvage yards, rubber rafts, sporting goods, electrical cables, hardware stores or construction theft, wooden beams and metal stanchions for shoring, lumberyards and steel suppliers, ventilation equipment, jury-rigged from fans and ducting, picnic tables and air mattresses, camping supply stores. Not a single item custom-made, not a single specialized heist tool, just common construction and industrial equipment repurposed by men who understood physics, geology, and how to move Earth without detection. Hit it with a sledge and sometimes the stone cracks. Sometimes it holds and your arms ring with the shock. Sometimes you spend 3 nights on the same embedded boulder chipping fragments until finally you wedge a crowbar underneath and lever it free. The 1.8 meter reinforced concrete vault floor was even worse. Rebar embedded in poured concrete, steel that dulls chisels, concrete that absorbs hammer blows. You cannot rush it. You chip. You cut with a thermal lance where you can. You pry. You rotate crew members so fresh arms keep swinging. 6 inches per night over 2 months equals roughly 360 inches total, 9 meters allowing for setup time and the final vault wall assault. The math holds. Never captured. Never served time. The 50 million francs, some estimates say 30 million, others 100 million, never recovered. Divided among the crew in July 1976 in that hinterland villa, and vanished into Marseille underworld bank accounts, Argentine real estate, Italian hideaways, business investments laundered through legitimate fronts. 6 gang members arrested in the initial sweep, 3 acquitted, 3 convicted with sentences 5 to 7 years. Light punishment for the crime of the century. Most served their time and returned to criminal careers or legitimate business, wealthy men living quietly. He believed the vault location, embedded in a reinforced bank building in the center of a major city, was inherently secure. He never calculated that 8 meters down, accessible through the sewer system that the city built to hide waste from view, a crew with hand tools could spend 2 months chipping toward his fortune. The lesson? Security is not about the strength of your walls. It is about monitoring access points, about redundancy, about not assuming the floor is as strong as the door. From different sources over months, this creates no pattern. Police found the tools in the sewer after the heist, but tracing purchase records proved impossible. Too common, too distributed, and functionally did the job perfectly. A thermal lance cuts concrete as well, whether it is stolen from a scrap yard or bought new with fake ID. A sledgehammer breaks rock, whether it comes from a professional supplier or a building site. The crew worked with what construction laborers used daily. 15 men, who probably included actual excavators or tunnelers, did not need specialized training on exotic equipment. They needed strong backs, discipline, and silence. Spaggiari provided structure and planning. The Marseille professionals provided expertise and nerve. Together, they executed what security analysts still study as a near-perfect heist, nonviolent, undetected during execution, technically brilliant, operationally disciplined. The only failure was human, bragging to girlfriends, writing books, craving recognition. The tools did not betray them, people did. The Nice sewers still run beneath the Riviera's wealth. 3 kilometers of tunnels still stretch from the Paillon to the city center. But nobody will dig that route again, not because it is impossible, because the attention it drew made the method famous, and famous methods become guarded methods. They were reversion, criminals going back to basic principles of physics and labor. You do not need a laser cutter to breach concrete if you have 2 months, 15 men, and the patience to chip 6 inches per night. You do not need military-grade explosives if a thermal lance and hydraulic jack will pry the final barrier. You do not need sophisticated reconnaissance if you can rent a safe deposit box, place an alarm clock inside, and confirm no. Sensors detected the sound. Spaggiari tested. He planned. He recruited. And when the moment came, the crew used tools as old as civilization, hammers and chisels and fire, to crack open the vault of the century. The truth about who really masterminded the operation, likely Marseille professionals using Spaggiari as frontman, but Spaggiari grabbed the glory and made himself the legend, while the actual engineers stayed ghosts. The tools themselves, most seized by police, photographed for evidence, eventually destroyed or stored in judicial archives. A few sledgehammers, some chisels, acetylene tanks, the rubber rafts, the electrical cable, mundane objects that accomplished the extraordinary. He cultivated his legend as the gentleman thief who pulled off the perfect heist without violence. Sans arme, ni haine, ni violence. The phrase became his epitaph. When cancer killed him in June 1989, his body was left outside his mother's house as a final gesture. Here I am, you never caught me alive. Life sentence in absentia never served, 50 million francs never repaid. The vault he cracked became more famous than most museums. The most reliable. They built to last because they knew a collapse would trap them in sewage 3 kilometers from escape. And even if they survived, the noise of a tunnel collapse beneath Avenue Jean Médecin would bring police immediately. So they built correctly, used construction techniques proven over centuries, treated the tunnel like a permanent installation even though they would use it once. That discipline, and that refusal to improvise carelessly with the engineering, even while improvising tools from stolen construction equipment, that is what made the heist succeed. The tools were basic, the execution was not. 15 men working alternate nights for 3 months, maintaining operational security, disposing of rubble without detection, progressing 6 inches per night through brutal geology, arriving at the vault ahead of schedule, welding the door shut, cracking 317 boxes, escaping through rising floodwater, dividing the loot without violence, and vanishing so completely that for months police had no leads. That is not luck. That is planning. That is discipline. That is professionals using improvised tools with professional skill. It was dozens of tools used by skilled hands over 3 months in darkness and waste. Sledgehammers that broke rock, chisels that split stone, thermal lances that cut concrete, hydraulic jacks that pried barriers, crowbars that levered rubble, oxyacetylene torches that opened steel boxes, all of it stolen, all of it common, all of it effective. Because the heist was never about the tools. It was about the men willing to use them in conditions most people cannot imagine enduring for 1 night, let alone 90 nights, waist deep in sewage, chipping rocks 6 inches at a time, hauling 50 kilograms of equipment 3 kilometers through tunnels, working in shifts with no alcohol, no caffeine, mandatory rest, military discipline. That is what bought 50 million francs. Not fancy equipment, commitment. The tunnel still exists beneath Nice, bricked up now, monitored, but physically present. 8 meters of hand-dug passage through pudang and concrete, a monument to what improvised tools and determined criminals can accomplish when engineering meets audacity. Walk Avenue Jean Médecin today and you pass over it. The Société Générale still operates, the sewer still flows, the Paillon still runs beneath the city in its covered channel. 3 kilometers of access still waiting. But the vulnerability has closed, not because the geology changed, not because the sewers were rerouted, but because the method became known. And known methods become defended methods. Tools improvised from construction sites, tunnel dug by hand, vault cracked without firing a shot, the heist of the century executed with equipment any contractor could acquire in a weekend. That is the lesson. The tools do not make the crime. The criminals do, and sometimes the criminals are just men with sledgehammers, chisels, and the patience to swing them 10,000 times until concrete breaks and wealth flows up through sewers into the night. Just 15 men willing to chip stone 6 inches per night for 2 months, while the Riviera slept above them, unaware that fortunes were being stolen through the ground beneath their feet by criminals using equipment as old as civilization itself.